Welcome to Pastor's Chat today. We're looking at Psalm 102. I've called this the Oh Me Psalm, or the Me, My, I Psalm. In the first 11 verses, the psalmist here is overwhelmed with sorrow. He's afflicted. Matter of fact, that's what the title says, a prayer of the afflicted, when he is overwhelmed and pours out his complaint before the Lord. And that's what he does in these first verses. Now, notice only one time in the first 11 verses, he mentions Jehovah in the very first verse. Hear my prayer, O Jehovah, O Lord, and let my cry come before you. And so, as we've already said, we talked about change. Things changed, and this man is despondent, maybe discouraged to the point of depression. Many of us, as we hear the news day after day, what's going on in the world, in Ukraine, there in Israel today, and all the things that are happening everywhere else, a world in turmoil, people taking sides, people hating each other, corruption and violence everywhere, as it was in the days of Noah. My friend, these are days to know that as despondent as we might be, as things change all around us constantly, there is a God who does not change. So the psalmist, you see, I, my, oh me, you see in these first verses. But now, beginning in verse 12, he turns from himself to Jehovah. In these next verses, all the way through verse 22, from 12 to 22, the Lord, Jehovah, Yahweh, is mentioned 7 times. 7 times he mentions his name. Now, Jehovah is the covenant name of God. God has made a covenant with his people. You need to understand, the Bible is a book of covenants. God made a covenant with Abraham. God made a covenant with David. God made a covenant with Noah. There are covenants that God makes. It's an agreement that he says, I'm going to do such and such. God made an unconditional covenant with Abraham in Genesis chapter 12. He says, I'm going to bless you. I'm going to make you a great nation. And through you, all the peoples of the earth, the nations of the earth, shall be blessed. There is no condition in there. God just simply said, I am making a covenant. I'm making an agreement with you. I'm going to do this. Now, that's what God does with us as believers through Jesus Christ. He's made a faithful covenant to us. And our Jesus is never changing, the same yesterday, today, and forever. We'll talk more about that later. But let's look at these verses beginning in verse 12. But you, O Lord, shall endure forever, and the remembrance of your name to all generations. Now also notice how many times he says your and you and he, speaking of Jehovah the Lord. You will arise and have mercy on Zion, for the time to favor her. Yes, the set time has come. For your servants take pleasure in her stones and show favor to her dust. So the nations shall fear the name of the Lord, and all the kings of the earth your glory. For the Lord will build up Zion. He shall appear in his glory. He shall regard the prayer of the destitute, and shall not despise their prayer. This will be written for the generation to come, that a people yet to be created may praise the Lord. For he looked down from the height of his sanctuary. From heaven the Lord viewed the earth, to hear the groaning of the prisoner, to release those who are appointed to death, to declare the name of the Lord in Zion, and his praise in Jerusalem, when the peoples are gathered together and the kingdoms to serve the Lord. Oh, don't you see the covenant name of God being proclaimed? And the psalmist turns from his me, oh my, my destitute, my affliction, I'm hurting, I'm in pain. He poured it out to the Lord, and now God has got a hold of his heart, and he looks up and he sees a covenant God. Now this covenant God made a covenant with Israel. And you find this covenant in the book of Leviticus, chapter 26 and 27 and 28. You find this covenant in the book of Deuteronomy. And you find it in in Deuteronomy chapter 28 and 29. And there God just says, I'll bless you as long as you obey me, and I'm going to keep you in my mind. And when you disobey me, I'll punish you, but you'll always still be in my heart. and I will bring you back to me one day. And my friend, that's a covenant God you can put your hope, faith, and trust in, and he always will keep his nation Israel. We'll talk more about that tomorrow. God bless you, and you have a wonderful, wonderful Lord's Day.